Hey, welcome to Sober City. My name is Seth, and I am an alcoholic still. Pretty excited to introduce you to my good buddy David. He's an absolute legend. I remember back in 2019 or something, David and Chelsea made a Facebook video discussing David's issue with alcohol abuse and the consequences of it. And at the time, I was, by appearance's sake, sober. And at that time, I knew I wasn't really, but I was really impressed with David and Chelsea's ability to own the shame and guilt and remorse and put it out publicly. They were probably one of the first examples I saw of living sober out loud. And David's always stood out to me. I've always admired and respected him a ton. And so it was important to me that I got him on the pod. And of course, he was willing to generously. And talking to him again 6 years later, I kind of forgot just what him and Chelsea had gone through. And it was just really powerful and impressive to talk to him and rehash all that again. And pretty cool that I get to share it with you. And as always, I sure appreciate listening and sharing. If you or someone you know is struggling, my phone number is always in the show notes. And man, sobriety's worth it. There's always hope. You're never too far gone. As you listen to David's story, you can see that it's possible regardless of how hard it is, because in the end, it is so much better. So yeah, with all that said, life is beautiful. Sobriety is worth it. Thank God for today. This is Sober City. David, welcome to Sober City, dude.
Thank you, Seth. It's great to be here.
Good to see you, buddy. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me for a little bit. David, how long have you been sober?
I got sober April 30th of 2017. So I hit 8 years back in April. So I guess almost 8.5 years, somewhere around there.
Dang, 8 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah. Thank you.
April 30th, 2017.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about what you were like before you got sober.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, I thought I was fantastic, but it turns out I wasn't.
Sure.
Yeah. We all think highly of ourselves when in our drinking days, but let's see. I didn't drink till I was 19 or almost 19. My parents made a bet with us growing up that if we didn't drink, do drugs, or have sex in high school, that they'd buy us whatever car we wanted on graduation night. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna get a free car. So I didn't have my first drink till graduation night of high school. So that was May of 2008. I turned 19 in June of 2008. So I was very close to being 19 before I ever had my first drink of alcohol. The first night I drank, I blacked out, and every time I drank after that was pretty much just, I thought that's what you did. You just drank till you blacked out. So there was very few times where it was just like, hey, I'm gonna have a couple of drinks. It was always like just go till you can't remember. So yeah, from the first time I drank up until I stopped drinking was always just drink to black out. That was kind of my thing. I don't know if it was a propensity towards it or what it was. It's just, what I associated with drinking was you just go to the party and you take shots, you do as much as you can, and someone gets you home and you try not to throw up on yourself, like it's pretty bad. So, first drink when I was 19, I actually went to rehab right after I turned 22, and that was in June of 2010. So within 3 years, I was in rehab for the first time. And that was pretty bad. I was drinking pretty heavily. Hard liquor was kind of my go-to. Beer filled you up. You could get drunk quicker off of vodka. So that was kind of my thing, was just get drunk as quick as I could.
Yeah, efficiency.
A lot of it had to do with the head talk, that everyone talks about. My head talk was just so bad of some of the stuff I'd done and decisions I'd made, that the only way to quiet it was just to black out. So, just drink real quick, blackout. I did that for a couple of years basically, and I found myself in rehab. Yeah, within right at about 3 years from the first time I had my first drink. I managed to stay sober a couple years. I've never actually really done like the exact math, but I stayed sober for a couple years after that rehab stint. I went back to college. I had a child during that time. So I was, raising a child as like a single dad. Went to college. I actually was doing pretty good in college. Things were actually going pretty well. After a couple years, I decided to have one drink here, one drink there. And you know how that goes within just a couple months, it got pretty bad. I ended up, I've always wanted to be an airline pilot. Finished school. I married Chelsea, which you're going to talk to her at some point. She'll kind of share your or her side of the thing, the story. But met her, we had a kid. Things seemed to be going well. We bought a house in Montana, and I had started drinking again. I went off to the airlines, and things got pretty bad when I was gone. I went to an airline, and I was down in Phoenix for training. And I started drinking pretty heavily again down there because, I didn't have a family around. I was by myself. I was in a hotel room and so
Oh
started
yeah.
drinking pretty heavily again. And yeah, from there it was just a struggle for about the next year and a half or so until the night of April 30th. So I struggled like here and there with, I'd go to some AA meetings and I'd get sober for a week or two, and then I'd leave on a trip and I'd go fly. And while I was flying or on reserve, whatever I was doing, I'd start drinking again. And come back, you do the whole apology. Oh, I'm going to go to meetings. I'm going to change things. And that just didn't ever work for me. So it took up until April 30th was kind of uh, put the nail in the coffin, so to speak. That's the night before that, but I was flying home from Denver and I was in my car in the parking lot, and I thought that I'd have a couple of drinks before I flew home. I wasn't actually flying. I should clarify that. Like, I wasn't going to go fly the plane. I was just going to ride as a passenger. Like, my shift was done, so to speak. My trip was over. And I was in my car, and I said, "Oh, I'll just have a couple of drinks." But a couple of drinks for an alcoholic is a lot of drinks.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I remember sitting in my car, and I remember having a few drinks, and then it kind of went dark after that, and I woke up in an ambulance. I had fallen in the parking lot, hit my head. They thought I was, they thought I had like bleeding on my brain, but really I was just drunk. And so I was in an ambulance. I woke up, and that was kind of my like come to Jesus moment where it was like game's over. I'm not gonna be able to hide from this one anymore. So I went to the hospital. I stayed the night in the emergency room. I got there with like my BAC was like a 0.32 or 0.33. I mean, it was up
Oh.
there pretty high. So, a couple of drinks was a lot of drinks. But that was just, your tolerance builds up. So what you think is a couple of drinks, would have killed a normal person. We flew back to Montana the next day when I got out of the hospital, and I told Chelsea, I said, "Hey, I think there's actually a program designed for airline pilots who struggle with addiction issues." And I told her, I said, "I think there's this program and I think they like help you out." I said, "I might be off work for a couple weeks. I don't really know how it works, but I think I need to get some help." And she was like, "Yeah, obviously." And so I called my boss, and that entered me into this program. And it took me almost 3 years to get my job back. So during that 3 years, we lost everything we owned and whatnot. And so it was kind of yeah, it was a bittersweet time, but it was also a much needed time for us to just kind of do a full reset. And that's kind of where I turned back to God and focused on my faith. And that's kind of what got us through everything. And eventually we ended up buying a house from you in South Dakota. That kind of played a part in everything of our journey to eventually get to kind of where we are today. So, but yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. It was never pretty. It was always pretty ugly. So
Yeah. There was never a point where it was what you thought it would be. It's
yeah,
just been a dead end.
it was never like, let's go sit by the fire and have a beer or two. Like
No.
I don't understand people that can do that. It just doesn't make sense to me because it's, a beer or two turns into a six pack, turns into a bottle of vodka, and it's amazing how fast it happens too. There's been multiple times in my life where I got sober for a period of time, and then you go back out and it starts with just one beer, and then the next week it might be two beers, and within 2, maybe 3 months, it's back to the handles of vodka every night and the shaking in the morning and throwing up in the shower and all the stuff that you do that's just insanity when you look back on it, you know?
No, it is
So,
insanity. Yeah. And it's frustrating because when you start back up again, you think, I'm going to do it right this time.
yeah,
It's always our objective. I'm going to drink like a gentleman, hiding bottles again. And you
yeah,
negotiate, somehow you negotiate with yourself that that's okay.
yeah,
Because you got to. I mean, there's no choice for us. You have to have more. It's just,
yeah. Yeah, and it's, I mean,
oh,
this being this far removed from it, you kind of start to forget things, but there's certain things that will remind me of like times where you just look back on it and you're like, that just doesn't make any sense. And like, I honestly didn't even like drinking. I hated the taste of alcohol,
yeah.
but I liked the effect that it gave me of just being able to like piece out of, everything that was going on in my brain just went numb and dark. And so that was kind of like what I chased was that. So it, I remember waking up in the mornings with throwing up, the shakes, sweating, and the only thing that would stop that was to go get more alcohol in your system. That's just your body telling you like, stop poisoning me.
Yeah.
And the only way to get it to stop was to put some more poison in. And so I remember sitting there, like, I don't even want to do this, but I have to because I can't get my body to stop. How am I going to go to work if I'm shaking or if I'm sweating? And it was just yeah, it was a dark time.
That's the worst when you feel like you can't live with it and you can't live without it. So
Yeah.
you're drinking because you have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't
You
even
just,
want to, and you don't like the taste. You're drinking
yeah.
it, and as you're drinking it, you're dry heaving. You're trying to just choke it down because yeah, it tastes terrible. It's probably warm at that point, and man, all you're trying to do is just uh, get that feeling and that anxiety too when you wake up the next day. That
Yeah.
fear. You're just so fearful, and one thing you said earlier too, when you're talking about what you're like before, you said head talk. That
Yeah.
kind of negative voice in your head. Uh, Talk about what that sounded like. What's head talk sound like to you?
Yeah, for me, I briefly talked to you before, but I have a sister who's in prison for meth. Alcohol has run through our family. There's issues to this day still. So when I was growing up, my parents just didn't allow alcohol in our house. Like it wasn't even talked about. They made the bet with us that it was just like, hey, if you just don't drink, well, yeah, other things involved too, but just don't drink. We'll buy you whatever car you want because it was viewed as like that bad. So when I did start drinking, when I did start partying, when I did start making mistakes, I got a girl pregnant my freshman year of college, Like I went from not drinking, not doing drugs, and not having sex to getting this car. I went to college and I was like, well, wait, drinking's great. Smoking weed, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Really, to me, it's just a sin issue, right? Like all that sin that bottles up in your life. Sin was fun. People don't do it. People wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't fun, right? And so the decisions that I had made, the stuff that was going on, for me, it was really just like I felt like just an utter disappointment to mainly to like my parents. Like, oh wow, they've already had some problems with some children, and so I was always kind of a people pleaser, and so I just didn't want to be the kid that caused trouble because they were already dealing with other children in their lives that had addiction issues and they had stuff going on, and it was always just such chaos with other kids in our family that I just thought if I could just be the good kid, and then it turns out I wasn't the good kid, and to me it was just a self-deprivation almost of like, hey, like you were a good kid one time, now look at you, look at these decisions you're making, look what you're doing, look at just all the stuff that was going on. So it was just a lot of shame of like the just a lot of shame of the decisions that I was making while I was drinking and whatnot. So those decisions just kind of like ate at me over and over, and it was just the head talk of like, oh, you are worthless.
yeah,
I think for me personally, I just think it was like an attack of the enemy of just like, hey, you're just a worthless human being. You're not worthy of anything, This is who you are. Just accept it. And so those were kind of like the lies that you tell yourself and or that I was telling myself. And yeah, drink to try to get it to go away. So
yeah,
you had mentioned like waking up and like the regret and the stuff. And there's a lot of shame involved in it too. Like you wake up and you're like, ah, how could I have done that again? How did I, I told all the people that loved me that I wasn't going to do this again, yet I continue to do it. And there's just a lot of shame every time that happens, every time you relapse or every time you go out and drink again, or every time, for me, it was just almost like every day it'd be like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to a meeting. And you go to a meeting, you'd be like, okay, I think I got it figured out. And an hour later, there you are again with another bottle. And it's just like just letting people down one thing after another. And the shame that comes with that is kind of the big thing is that was my head talk of just like you can't do anyone any good, you're useless. So
Yeah, that's 100% right. That's that head talk stuff is self-inflicted because
absolutely,
it
yeah.
perpetuates, it feeds itself.
Yeah.
Uh, you create this environment where you just keep drinking. We talk about, being hungover and the little hair of the dog fixes it, but we just, our head talk, man, it just keeps us in the slump of self-pity, of fear.
Yeah.
And which really is like you talked about your faith, just this lack of faith, this fear, is this and this unworthiness, which also leads to like I don't know if it leads to self-destruction. You start to get some
Yeah.
good things going on in your life, and you feel like you don't deserve it, so you start sabotaging,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
which then you drink because your things are falling apart because you're
Yeah.
sabotaging.
Yeah.
Man, it's just like it's not just the drinking. It's like even when some of the most harmful things I've done sober.
Yeah.
And then I drink because I felt bad about what I said or did. And then when you drink, then you're kind of like, screw it, you got that courage.
Yeah.
I wasn't a blackout drinker, unless I was mixing it with Valium or benzos, then I would black out.
Okay.
But when I had blacked out, man, that's a terrifying when you wake
Yeah.
up and I remember that feeling. I hate it. I could not imagine being a blackout drinker because when I did blackout and I would wake up and no idea what happened,
Scary. Yeah.
and you're afraid to check your phone. Your wife's not talking to you or whatever.
Yeah.
And oh, bro,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, and then yeah, so April 29th was the night you got picked up by the ambulance, basically.
Yeah. April 29th was the night I got picked up, and then that was the last time I had a
That was
drink
last
was
drink. Yeah.
sitting in my car in the Denver airport parking lot.
Yeah.
So
Having a couple.
having a couple of point
What?
three something
Yeah.
later,
Point three, which, yeah, I mean,
So
lethal BAC is like point 0.4,
yeah.
right? I mean, you're cutting it close, but like you said, we build up such a tolerance. I've talked to paramedics that have talked to have full on conversations with people that were at that level and they
Yeah.
couldn't believe they should be dead.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could have died. You then had to be honest about your drinking, and you went back home and talked to Chelsea about it, and you enrolled in this program.
Yeah.
And what's crazy to me about that is then by enrolling in this program, you forfeited your pilot's license, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, technically, yeah, I didn't necessarily give up my license, but we have a medical certificate which validates our license. So in order to operate with the license that I have to fly, you have to have a current medical. So anytime you have an issue, if you don't have a medical, it doesn't validate that pilot license. So you can't authorize the privileges that we have to fly unless you have a medical for it. So really what I did was I surrendered my medical certificate, and without that medical certificate, you can't operate as a commercial pilot or really fly at all. There's certain things you can do, but not for pay or anything like that. So yeah, I went into it's called the HIMSS program. Started back in the 80s, and it's an addiction program for pilots. So it's a career or an industry that those issues run kind of rampant. It's a career where you're by yourself all the time. So a lot of isolation. There's a lot of pilots that do things because it keeps their energy levels high. Cocaine was a big thing back in the day. People flying those long haul flights just to stay awake, stuff like that. So it's an issue within the industry, just drinking in itself. And so that was the program that I went into that was specifically designed for pilots, and still in it to this day, and I'll be in it for the rest of my career. So I can retire in 30 years. So for the next 30 years, I'll still be part of that program if I want to continue to fly, which is a, zero tolerance program for any mind-altering substances.
Right. With good
So,
reason. Right.
yep.
But
Yeah.
you enroll in this program, and by doing so, you had said you essentially kind of lost everything. You had to move in with with Chelsea's parents, or
Yeah, that was with my parents actually. Yeah, so I enrolled in this program, and what happens is I mean, to this day, I'm still doing blood tests and stuff like that for this program. So it's very like drawn out process, and it starts with you're going to do this, so on and so forth. So the first step was to go to rehab. So you do a month in an inpatient rehab clinic. At the time, back in those days, pilots, like when you were first starting off, like made very little money. So we did not have a ton of money at the time, and so I couldn't afford the insurance through my company. So I ended up going to the emergency room, which ended up not being covered, and then I went to rehab, and that ended up not being covered.
yeah.
So within my first 31 days of being sober, I had two very large medical bills, and so uh, we had also made some decisions with our house that we owned in Montana. We had when we had bought it, they just one of the loans that we had done on it was a non-standard in-house loan because they said, well, we'll wait till you're at your job for a whole year and that'll look better on your finances. So we did an in-house loan and they came back to refinance it while I was in rehab, basically. They were like, hey, your year's up. Let's refinance this loan.
No.
And they were like, what's your income like? And I it's like, well, I actually just lost my job, and Chelsea was actually 9 months pregnant when all of this happened. So she was going to be finished working because we were going to have three kids at that point. And so our plan was for her to stop working. She was going to be at home with the kids, and I was just going to be working and be able to provide at that point. And so, yeah, I left for rehab like 36 hours after Finn, our third, was born. So I left her at home with a like an absolutely brand new, not even 2 day old baby when I had to go to rehab. They were nice enough to let me be a part of being there when he was born, but they were like, "Hey, once he's born, you need to be on a plane going to rehab," because that's kind of how the program works. It's like when you call and say you want to go in, they're like, "We'll see you in rehab tomorrow," type thing. But yeah, she kind of went into labor because of the stress of not knowing where I was that night when I was in all the stress of like you didn't show up on an airplane and now they have no idea where I am. And so that kind of sent her into labor. And
Oh
so
man.
basically the bank called and said, we're ready to refinance, send us all your latest income. And I was like, well, actually my wife just quit her job 2 weeks ago and I'm in rehab. And I was like, I don't know what my pay is going to be like. They said, we'll start foreclosing in a year. And so we didn't really have any other options other than to sell. So we sold our house, used the money to pay off some of our medical debt and all the stuff we had. The program in itself is fairly expensive because most insurances don't cover a lot of the stuff that we do. Like we're not even allowed to use insurance with the doctors and stuff that we see. So I just had bills like racking up. So we sold our house, our cars, like we were selling couches, anything we could do to get money. And we ended up moving, yeah, me and Chelsea and the kids all moved into my parents' basement. I mean, we had like $0 to our name, nothing. We got a storage unit in Billings and put some stuff in there that we thought was like one day we would want, but otherwise, if it was worth anything, we pretty much sold it and packed up and moved into my parents' basement. I remember leaving Montana, sitting in the driveway of our house that we had just sold. Everything had just closed. The keys are to other people. We no longer own it. And we're getting ready to drive out and move to South Dakota. And Chelsea was sitting there just crying, like, how did we get here? And I remember saying, like, hey, let's not forget this moment, like right now. Sitting in this driveway, I like still picture it to this day, sitting there right next to an aspen tree. So let's not forget this moment right here so we don't ever get back here. And so to this day, I mean, there's still times where I think that like, okay, that's where it takes you. Packing up your wife and kids because you lost everything you own to go move into your parents' basement. So, um, but yeah, that was kind of a long story there for what you'd asked. But it went into the program, and that is kind of what kick started us losing everything we owned. So, Yeah.
Jeez, dude, that's brutal. I have anxiety right now a little bit, and
You
that's
know,
tough.
it,
You're trying to get sober, dude, and if there was ever a reason to drink, you got a brand new baby. How long were
yeah.
you and Chelsea married at that point? You guys are
Let's
probably,
see. At that point, we had been married since June of 14, so 3 years,
yeah.
something like that. We maybe 3.5 at that point. By the time because this was about 6 months after rehab or something like that. That we finally sold our house, moved out, got everything all sold and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, we were still like newly married, you
That's
know.
what I mean. Yeah, you're
Um,
still,
yeah, so we had two babies of our own. We had Noah with us half the time, and so
yeah.
or my oldest son who has a different mom. But so we were like newlyweds, still trying to figure things out, and here we are with absolutely nothing but
How long did you
uh,
guys date before you got married? Or would you say was
9
it?
months.
Yeah, it was kind of a quick,
So
like,
yeah,
date, engaged, married within a year,
dated
kind of.
dated 7, engaged 2, married at 9. And
Yeah,
so yeah, I mean we hadn't even known each other for like, a total of 4 years or something at this point. So yeah, we it was just a wild period of how did we get here? It was a very, for lack of a better term, a fall from grace, because I put a lot of my identity into the fact that I'd finally made it to the airline. I was an airline pilot, and that was where I found my identity, and that came tumbling down pretty quick. And so when that gets ripped out from under you, when your identity is built on who you are or what your job defines you as, when that stops, it's just kind of like you have no idea who you are as a person. So
absolutely. Well, and
yeah,
that's the thing, right? Getting your wings that's a big deal, right? I mean, I've
yeah,
got friends that are pilots. I mean, that is a badge of honor. Yeah,
it's a lot of work. So,
that's a lot of work, and it's definitely a point of pride.
yeah,
And yeah, and and even going through rehab, doing everything that you were supposed to be doing, staying sober, there's still no guarantee that you could fly again, right?
correct. And I ended up actually a couple years later, I ended up being one of I was a chairman for the program that I was in for my airline because of some stuff that had happened, and I wanted to try to make some changes. So I got to a leadership role so I could try to initiate those changes, but it normally doesn't take that long. And so it was kind of looking back on it now, it was really I think it was just a time of like faith building for us, where we really learned a dependence on God at that point, where it was no longer like, okay, my identity is no longer in me being a pilot, like I don't have that anymore. I know that everything I have now is just a gift from God. So for us, it was like a faith building time, and it should have taken about a year, maybe a year and a half to get back to the cockpit. And it took 987 days. I know because Chelsea made me this little metal placard with a picture of the two of us when I got my wings back and I finally got to go on my first flight. She left a little thing in my flight bag, this little metal key tag, and she did the math and counted it, and it was 987 days. So it took almost 3 years to get back. And so it shouldn't have taken that long, but it did. And looking back on it, it's now just all like God's time is a lot better than mine. So it all was perfect the way it worked out, but it shouldn't have taken that long to get back, but it did, and that's what it took you know, to get us to where we are today. And
That's it, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that was exactly how long it needed
yeah,
uh, to the day. But gosh, when you're
yeah,
in it though, that's a long time.
yeah. It's
That is
tough. I
a,
mean, that was kind of the fall from grace, as I went from being an airline pilot to I had absolutely nothing, and so I started painting houses.
I remember that. Yeah,
That's what I did in college. Was I painted houses to get through college, and so I just started painting houses, and it was like we would have absolutely nothing, and I'd paint a house, and we'd be able to pay some bills and put some food on the table, and then it would be like, okay, we're back to nothing. I don't know what's going to happen. And you'd get a phone call. Hey, I have a friend that wants their house painted. Are you available? And it's like, yeah. And so I just kind of like, yeah, it was a big faith building time for us, just to be like, we literally had nothing, and not knowing how you're going to feed your family. There's a lot of stress involved in that. So yeah, like that's the time where you really want to go out and, you know, where you should go out and drink, right? When you're stressed. It's like, but yeah, it was a hard time, but it was also kind of bittersweet. Like to this day, we talk about it every now and then. Like, man, those were such simpler times when we had nothing and we couldn't go do anything. We had each other and we could like go to the park, hang out, be together as a family, but that was it. And it was a much simpler time. Like when you start to get things back and money starts coming and stuff starts, and now you have bigger issues to worry about. And it's like, man, that was a really sweet moment for us as a family to just like bond as a family. So,
Absolutely. And you
yeah.
think you and Chelsea got through that, you could get through about anything now, I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
That's
I talked to
incredible.
you briefly before we started, but, like in August of last year, I got diagnosed with a heart condition. And so I lost my medical again for 8 months. And when you hear, you're like 34, 35 years old and you hear you have a heart condition, you're like, oh great, here we go again. So lost my medical instantly for that one. But yeah, it was kind of like there was a day or so where it was a little bit of panic, like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And then it was like, wait a minute, we did this for like 3 years and it's not about me. It was like, hey, you're like, I kind of had to get rid of that, like, oh, I provided all this stuff. How am I going to maintain this? And it really wasn't. It was really another time to be like, no, everything I have is just a gift from God. So, like, we've done this. Like, it was really not a time to worry or anything like that. And it ended up being like an incredible 8 months off and getting to spend time with the family again. So it was another huge blessing. So, yeah, that 3 year period back then kind of prepared us for the last 8 months that we went through and anything that'll happen in the future. I'm sure something will come up again, and it's just like, well, we know how to get through it. So
Right. What can you control? And the kind of nice thing when you're sober is you'll still experience hardship, you'll
yeah,
still experience bad things, but what's nice is they're not a result of our actions.
yeah,
Like your heart condition wasn't because you were
yeah,
going on benders. It's just a fluke thing. And now, I'll have a bad day. Or, I mean, I had a pretty bad month, one of the worst Junes I've ever had for real estate,
mm,
which in the past would have really scared me. I mean, I made no money for June, which is scary because this is the time when I make enough to get me through winter. And
yeah,
man, I didn't even think about it because
hmm,
I can tell you it wasn't slow because I was hungover.
yeah,
And I can assure you, I did everything I could that month. And I had deals, really big deals fall apart. And when I found out they were falling through one by one, I just said, oh, these people had to cancel for whatever reason. And I
yeah,
get it. And one of them said, hey, I hope it doesn't affect our friendship. Or, I mean, I feel like old Seth would have fought. Like, come on, you're in a contract. You got to see this through because I need money. But
yeah,
I was able to reassure them that don't buy it if you're not comfortable. And
yeah,
there's just that mindset of like it's just a faith thing, man. It's like, yeah, you really have to lean on God to be sober
yeah,
because people like you and I, that's what we liked about drinking was because we were God and
yeah,
we were terrible gods.
yeah,
And we did not like chaos. We like control, which ironically, for people like us who like control, we're really out of control. I think
yeah,
that's why I drink. And it's when you talk about pilots too, like I can totally see do it like airports are the best places to drink. Man, they're like it was hard for my first year of sobriety. I did not want to be in an airport because
okay.
I would specifically pick flights that had long layovers.
So you can go to the bar and drink.
Oh yeah, and it could be
Yeah,
8 in the morning, and I'm sitting there with 10 other people. None of
yeah,
them I'll ever see again. And then even in airports, though, I still found myself drinking, having a few drinks at one bar, and then going to another bar and acting like
yeah,
those were my first few, and still
yeah,
playing
you
that
did.
insanity of
Yeah,
I don't want this bartender to know that I've had 6 drinks at 8 in the morning,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
and playing it off like, oh, that's enough for me today. Thank you for the 3 mimosas, and then go to the
yeah.
next one, like, oh, I better have a mimosa.
Yeah, moving on down
Yeah,
worried about what people might think about you. Yeah,
yeah, complete strangers,
yeah,
and then almost missing a flight because I'm asleep in the waiting to board, or man, brutal. But I could totally
yeah,
see how pilots might end up because you don't know anybody
yeah,
typically, and
yeah.
um,
It's and where you're gone if you're married with kids, you're gone from your family, you're flying with, there's two of us, and usually, that's usually, a lot of times I fly with guys, and that's like uh, guys are always like, hey, beer's on me this whole trip. Well, I'll save you a lot of money.
That's
I'm
right.
good, you
Yeah.
know. But that's use. It's kind of just the like it's just kind of a culture thing almost at the airlines. Like, hey, when we get to our hotel, what
Oh
time we
yeah.
meet in the lobby to go to the bar, you know? And so that was a big part of my sobriety is having to relearn how to do this job. I just flew in this morning, and so I just was gone for 5 days, and how it was a big learning curve coming back to it because one of my big things that I didn't ever drink at home. I always drank when I was away. So like Chelsea has seen me drink very little in our marriage because I would drink when I was gone. I'd come home and I'd have 2 or 3 days off, and I would like recoup enough to go back out and go to work and then do my drinking while I was gone. And so yeah, I had to basically relearn how to do this job. It's a whole new job when you're not drinking and you're still faced with all the same issues that you were when you were drinking. You just have to learn how to get through them. Like being in hotel rooms by myself, I just don't sit in hotel rooms anymore, you know? Like there's stuff that I do to just not put myself in those positions. You know, it's not like I can't not go to a hotel room. I just had to learn certain things, you know? Um, so yeah, it's like having to relearn how to do my job all over again. So,
Yeah. And just
but
being adults too.
yeah,
You go on a trip by yourself, you don't want to just sit in your room thinking about not drinking because then
yeah,
alcohol still has a handle on you. You're still living according to its terms. So you kind of
yeah,
find things to do to, get busy, do something, call
yeah,
people, do work or whatever. But the two things that are kind of dangerous to us is free time and money,
yeah.
liquid, accessible money. And yeah, so you're in a hotel room and you got time and money.
Yeah, and sometimes we're in fantastic places, you know, and I just learned to like enjoy them. Where was I? I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was in Aruba. You spend day and a half in Aruba, and you're like, old me would have just sat in a hotel room drinking, and now it's like, no, man, I'm gonna go explore the island. I was just in Puerto Vallarta. Me and a guy went on a surf trip. You know, we had some complete stranger pick us up in a Jeep with some surfboards and took us an hour away to go surfing. And so now I get to actually like experience this stuff, and man, it's a whole lot better to like experience those and not have to go back to the old ways. And life's just much better all around.
No, for
So
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
man, I went on one of the best vacations of my life in December with my wife for our anniversary. Went to Kauai and
Okay.
we were on a beach and people were walking on the beach with, their tall boys, Coronas, and I was just like, man, that looks like work. That looks like work. It doesn't look relaxing. It just because I
Yeah.
know if I by some miracle convince my wife to let me have a beer, like we talked about, I'd have to find some way to find a bar, or
Yeah.
I'd have to tell her, hey, I need to go put gas in the rental car and then get a bottle and hide it under the seat. And
Yeah.
then I forgot my phone in the car, all that stuff just because I had
Yeah.
one beer. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, and the fear of getting caught, the look on our wives' faces, like when you had to come home. And for Chelsea, that was probably like, she had no idea that you had this, right? Like at that point.
She knew that I struggled, and so there've been times before where I like, would disappear. And so she just instinctually like she
Oh,
just
yeah,
knew like they just always know.
they know.
Like the people that love you the most, like they knew no matter what. It was like it's like you'd crack a beer and your phone would ring, and it's just like they
Yeah.
knew somehow, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it was she always yeah, she always knew when I was drinking, even if I didn't like have to confront her about it. But yeah, like you said, having to face those people and like tell them like, ah, I messed up again, which really plays a lot into the shame of like, oh, how did I do this again? And you don't want to do it. You don't want to hurt your wife. You don't want to hurt your kids. You don't want to hurt those, but yeah, it just takes you over to where like it's not even you making that decision anymore. You don't want to do it. You don't want it, but somehow you do it. Paul talks in Romans, I forget where it is in Romans, where he talks about like, or in the Corinthians, letter to the Corinthians, he talks like, why do I do the things I don't want to do, but the things I want to do, I don't do. Like it's just a human instinct, a human nature to like the things that you don't want to do, you just instinctively do, and you're like, why did I do that? Like that's just who we are as humans, as sinful, fallen people. So, it's just that, like, I don't want to do this. Then why are you doing it? I don't know, but I continue to do it, but I don't want to do it. It's just a big
Yeah,
mind game. So,
right. And don't you love your wife? You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that if you love?
yeah,
It's like I do love her, but yeah, we just don't know how to do. We don't until we find another avenue. Um,
yeah,
and you call it out. And that was the reason why it was important for me to have you. You played kind of a pivotal role early on for me because I remember you and Chelsea making a Facebook video. You guys got on Facebook and told your story. And at that
yeah,
time, I was quote unquote sober. It was like 2019, I think. And I had got
yeah.
sober for as far as appearances go. I was sober in 2014. But as soon as I was on a trip or as soon as Brittany left town, I was drinking. There was times I would go to lunch and have 3 beers, and because I knew by the time I get home, you can smell it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's not sobriety. And even if I
yeah,
wasn't, doesn't even have to do with alcohol. I was not a fun person. I was
yeah.
always wanting to drink. I couldn't be around other people drinking. Alcohol was still a big part of my life, but I wasn't drinking. And I remember you and Chelsea made this video, and I was just blown away, mainly because it was like, gosh, I could tell you were being honest. I wasn't being honest. You were being honest, and and you and Chelsea were, and I kind of like resented you guys, which is ironic because I think I was just envious because
Yeah.
you were figuring it out, and you were kind of like I felt like I was getting called out. And I think I
Mm.
even messaged you like, "Hey man, congrats! I'm sober too. I've been sober for since 2014. If you have any questions or whatever, but I had no
Uh,
idea what I was doing. But I remember Brittany was like, "Did you see that video?" And people eat that up, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
gosh, dude, you owned it. And gosh, man, your story is insane. Trying to get sober for me when I was living with my mom, Brittany kicked me out when I first got sober in those 4 months when I was living with my mom. And on the weekends, I would hang out with my boys at the house, and Brittany would go stay at her dad's.
Mm.
I thought that was terrible, you
Yeah.
know. But man, what you went through and to not drink while dealing with, yeah, living with your parents, with 3 kids, kind of a new wife
Yeah.
who's probably like, she's probably thinking and I'm excited to have her on. I'm grateful that she's willing to do this because I can imagine what she was thinking. Like, what did I sign up for?
Yeah, that I joke with her to this day. Like we obviously our marriage now is absolutely fantastic, and
I
we've
can
learned
imagine.
so much together. But I joke with her to this day because I make a lot of dumb decisions. Like just I'm just a kid still. I haven't grown up yet. One of these days I will. But like we found a bunny rabbit on the road, and I brought it into our house. Like, and she like she walked into the house. She's like, "Why is there a rabbit in our house?" And I was like,
Yeah.
"We found it. We found him on the road." And like those decisions, you just
Yeah.
see that look like, what's wrong? And I'll poke at her every now and then, and just be like, hey, just remember, you had every opportunity to leave and
Yeah,
you
right.
stayed. So this is just as much your fault as, just joking around about it. But
But for real,
obviously, no, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, like you'll have to hear her side of it. But like,
right.
she had every opportunity to leave. In reality, she should have left. Like any other woman probably would have left. And
No, she
somehow she
was
didn't.
right. She was within
And
her
so,
rights for sure. I think that's you send her into early labor, you know what I mean? And then you go to
yeah.
rehab when she's got this, and then two other, your oldest. So your oldest was still coming. Chelsea was
Yeah.
still kind of responsible for your
Yeah, he
oldest too.
was 50-50, so he was with us,
Yeah,
it was basically every other week, right? So she's
yeah,
still responsible for, yeah, now 3 kids, and yeah, I mean just abandonment, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, so how she stayed with me, I don't know. Like to this day, I'm just absolutely blessed that she did. And like I said, our marriage is absolutely fantastic to this day. But yeah, how she stuck around, I don't know. But I do like to poke her every now and then, just like, hey, you stuck around. You should have left.
that's right.
Just
Yeah.
jokingly. It's all
Oh,
joking now.
I get it,
We're
but
far
same
enough
thing.
removed from it that we're able to like joke about stuff now. And they talk about that, like with people recovering, like one day you'll be able to look back on it and you'll be able to laugh at yourself. And we finally got to that point of being able to be like, wow, do you remember that? Or you remember that? And able to kind of just joke about like, wow, we were so stupid. But it's all stuff that you remember that I think helps. build stuff in the future. Like I said, that image I have of my wife crying in our driveway and just saying, let's never get back to this point. That stuff is just burned in my mind. So,
That's
but
what it
part of that
takes,
was,
dude. Yeah.
you talked about the video. That was one of the things we decided was part of my fall from grace, so to speak, was I didn't want anyone to know. And that was the shame of like, wait, weren't you just a pilot and now like you're getting kicked out of your house and like what, what's going
You're
on?
painting houses.
Yeah, like why are you painting houses? I thought you were a pilot. And that was I have vivid memories of doing these stuff. I was staying in a house one time, laying on a burning hot roof in the middle of like June, and I was staining these soffits and I had like stain dripping in my face. And I remember looking up and across the sky was this plane and a contrail was behind it, and I just started crying and it was just like, how did I get here, Um, but part of it was we decided early on that I said, that I hope that I can help someone someday to not have to do what we're going through. And it was basically like, well, then I think we need to like talk about our story. So what it really ended up being was our church. We went to a big church in Billings, like thousands of people every weekend. And part of my decision to get sober was also a decision to like, I decided it was when I was going to start following Christ again. And part of that was like, I got baptized as a young kid. I don't really remember it. And I said, I want to like actually I want to actually show people that I'm turning my life around, that I gave my life to Christ. And so I got baptized again. And our pastor asked me to do a video. They used to do kind of these like a 5 minute video of kind of like a quick testimony before people get baptized. He asked me to do one, and I was like that means everyone in the church would know, and thousands of people. I mean, it was a very big church. And I said, okay, like I'll do it. And so I made a testimonial video, and after that, it was like, well, cat's out of the bag now. Everyone knows. And so from there, it was just like, all right, like let's just share our story. So we've done some Facebook videos, we've done other podcasts, we've been very open about it, and even to this day, we still get people that will message us. Chelsea was actually in a park in the middle of Cody, Wyoming, and a lady walked up to her and she said, "This is going to sound very strange, but I know you." And my wife was like what? And she goes, I know you. I was dealing with my husband at the time, and I watched a Facebook video of you and your husband talking about, and so she had watched our video, and she was like, you guys actually helped me get through all the situation I was going through with my husband at the time. Some random stranger in the middle of Cody, Wyoming. She knows no one in Cody, Wyoming. So to this day, we're still like super grateful, not because we
Yeah.
want people to know who we are, but just to like share our story for experience, strength, and hope for other people to hopefully get something out of it so they don't have to go through some of the stuff we did. None of it has to do with us. So we don't want recognition. We don't want to be those people, but we want people to know like healing is possible, and to the only way for people to know that is to share your struggles. Everyone goes through stuff. I don't think there's a perfect person out there, Everyone has something they're going through. So even if our story at that time, I think that lady was dealing with the husband going through divorce or something. It didn't even have to, we were talking about alcohol problems, but just sharing our struggles and the fact that we could like get through it together inspired someone. And you're like, okay, that's why we did it. That's why we were willing to be open. That's why we do podcasts. That's why we talk about it. I'm very vocal about it in the cockpit when I fly. I usually, you typically fly with a guy and you're with them for 4 or 5 days at a time. And the very first day, they're like, hey, what time are we meeting for drinks? It's like, hey, I'm actually in the HIMSS program. I don't drink. Like, you're on your own this time, man. Sorry. And then it always opens up conversation to whatever it might be. But just being vocal about it is usually people's like, oh wow, really? Like I want to hear more about that. And then instinctively they'll be like, well, here I actually struggle, blah blah blah. And it's amazing what you can do to like rather than sit there for 4 or 5 days together, you now get to like encourage each other or whatever, versus just, hey, what time are we going to the bar, So it's kind of it's opened up a lot of opportunities being willing to share and being willing to talk about it. So
That's it. Man, you said a lot of good stuff there. I think one thing I would want to point out is there's a there's a couple quotes that come to mind. One is Henry Ford, and he says that the human experience is one of supreme value.
Yeah.
And when you talked earlier, you had said that your identity was in your wings, or some my identity was in owning a real estate company, being
Mm,
financially successful. And actually, when Brittany kicked me out, I was not in a good financial position. And it's when you talk about self-destruction, well, like you talk about Chelsea had the chance to leave you. Like, why'd you stick around? You know what I mean?
hmm.
We're skeptical of people. And I think with my wife, I was like, you're only with me because I make money. If I didn't make money, you wouldn't be with me. And that was part of my self-destruction was I was not managing money well.
Uh,
And so then when I tell her, hey, we don't have any money anymore, now you can leave. You're right. I think that's where I was at. And
yeah.
then when she kicked me out, I was like, oh, this isn't what I want. Like this sucks.
Yeah.
Because I thought, oh, it'd be nice to be single. If I could just single, I could do what I want. It's insanity for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Henry Ford said the experience is one of supreme value because you can lose all those things. Your health, you had a health scare, your pilot license, all these things. Chelsea could have left you. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
these things that we find our identity in can be gone. But your experience is probably your greatest asset because you can use it to help other people. And that leads me to the other quote I was thinking of, which is for us as ex problem drinkers, the most important thing for us is to know the needs of others and see that they be met.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about somebody in Cody, Wyoming, talking to Chelsea and saying, hey, I know you guys, or you make these videos, and you're clear to say, well, it's not about us, right? Like, yeah, you're doing it in humility, but there's this part of you that knows that by being vocal, by making yourself available,
Yeah.
it's not about you. It's about the need that by helping somebody else, it keeps you sober.
Yeah.
And that's what's I mean, that's why for a long time I heard people say I'm a grateful alcoholic. I was
Mm.
like, that's insane. I don't want to be an alcoholic. But
Yeah.
now, dude, I love this thing, dude, because every day I have to be thinking of others because the second I start thinking of Seth is when I start getting crazy. And we're selfish, dude, by nature,
Yeah.
like when you talk about your wife who's 9 months pregnant, and you didn't mean to, but that's what we do. We're destructive, we're selfish. And gosh, man, then you have to go to rehab and deal with that shame and
Yeah.
not be there for your wife with your newborn.
Oh yeah.
And then 3 years to get your license and you're painting houses, dude. That's such hard work, man. I could not paint a house. That
It
is
was
such.
yeah, it was I actually it turned out it's a great skill to have because it's even like this last 8 months when I was off, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like I need to be doing stuff all the time, and there's only so many mountain bike rides I can do, or I can only ski so much. Where I was like, all right, but I was able to. There's some people in our church, and I was able to like paint some rooms in their house. Or our pastor, I painted his whole house, and it was like so. Even like looking back on it now, it's like, hey, even those experiences of like while I wasn't flying and I was painting house, I learned a skill that even to this day helps me in a time where I'm like, well, I got time in my hands. Who needs help? And it goes back to that, like, yeah, you go from being selfish to selfless because once you start getting that selfish tendency again, that's when it all goes downhill pretty fast. And
Super
yeah,
fast. It's crazy how fast you start slipping. And one thing I have to be mindful is keeping score. So
yeah,
you paint your pastor's house, right? And you feel that's great because that's what keeps you sober because you're not thinking of David while you're doing that. You're seeing a need
yeah,
and you're meeting it and you're being of value. But all of a sudden something happens and you're like, wait a second, I painted that guy's house. And then you start looking at Chelsea and saying, oh, she's not upholding her end of the bar, dude. Like that's a battle that I struggle with sometimes because I'll be doing good for a while, and that's what's hard is then I get these tallies, this score,
mhm,
and then something happens where I'm like I take a step back and look at the scoreboard and be like, wait a second, Seth's not getting what he deserves. Which thank God I don't. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But my what I deserve is not not what I mean, I shouldn't think like that, but that's where we start getting selfish. And then I have to quickly call somebody. Or that's what I love about this
Yeah.
podcast is, occasionally somebody will call me. And when I start thinking like that, I just call them, see how they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not about me at all. And it's not about you. But man, you've got an incredible story. You and Chelsea are phenomenal. You guys should write a book, dude. But look at you guys now. Now you're in Utah and you're flying for a major airline.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm at Delta now, so yeah, my company knows, and that's one of the
okay, yeah,
things.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, Delta knows. I was one of the chairmen for our program when I was at a different airline. And now here at Delta, because of the experience I had there, I help out a little bit here and there with stuff with the Delta program, but that's one of the things that they actually like encourage us to do is talk about the program because a lot of pilots don't actually know it exists. They talk about it in doc class. They'll come in and for like an hour they'll tell us about this program, but it might be 20 years down the road that you struggle. And that 1 hour in doc class when you were learning everything else at the time is, who's going to remember that? So they're actually like pretty vocal about like spread the word, like let people know that there's help available, especially for pilots. It doesn't need to be a shameful thing. So they have no problem with us talking about it. And it's also, once pilots do go through the program, they become very productive and we get honest and our issues get fixed and whatnot, and we come back and we like become very productive members of the airline where and we're not just a drag on the system. I mean, we're not calling in sick because we're hungover. We're not doing all that stuff. We actually are like, wow, we're blessed to have this job now. And so it kind of like it's almost like the program is like the company encourages let people know that program's there because when the pilots come back from going through all that stuff, they usually end up becoming the leaders and the chief pilots and stuff like that, just because they dealt with all their stuff and now they want to be productive and give back and whatnot. So no, Delta's good with people knowing that yeah, I'm one of their pilots. So we did a podcast not too long ago, and it was with an airline lady. She'd worked for American Airlines for 30 years. She did something called Sober October, and so we were on her podcast, and we actually got a lot of grief from people that were saying like, you shouldn't talk about this. The flying public shouldn't know. We actually had pilot wives reaching out to us saying, my husband's a pilot and he says none of this is true. And it's well, a lot of the information is actually public. Like if you want to go look up how many pilots failed drug tests, you can go look that up. It's the FAA, it's a government thing. You can go see for yourself. So there was a lot of disbelief into that too. Like we did a podcast and people were just like, wait, pilots don't struggle with that. And it's like, okay, sounds good, but they do. I ran a program for an airline. I can tell you the names of every single guy that was in it. I talked to their wives when they were drinking. I had phone calls from kids' moms that were calling me. Like, it's a very real thing. So, anyways,
Yeah, it's
Delta
everywhere.
knows.
I think we
Yeah,
like to think that, oh no, pilots, heaven forbid, right? But man, I know, yeah, police officers, but we like to think that alcoholics are the folks on the street,
yeah.
but in
Brown
reality,
bag, the
it's,
the bum
yeah,
under the bridge, and yeah,
yeah, but it's us, and we're just better at hiding it.
yeah,
And that's why I'm grateful you're willing to share your story. And you're absolutely right. Alcoholics, when we get sober, we're very service oriented. We're we have to be mindful of others. And so when it
yeah,
comes to a professional, I mean, no better place to be of service than in our profession.
absolutely, yeah,
And that's where we really, within our profession and in our family, those are our two main pillars. And then society, the community. But
yeah,
primarily, yeah, when I show up to work, I show up. And when somebody calls me wanting to see a house, I don't care what the price point is. I'm grateful that they're calling me and I have an opportunity
yeah,
to be of service. Even today, I helped somebody out with some real estate stuff and won't charge them. It's just because I'm just happy that I'm a value. I can be a
yeah,
value and people call me and
absolutely.
trust me. And so HIMS is a human intervention motivational study.
Yeah.
And how has that helped? Has that helped you with your sobriety, or is it just kind of an obligation?
No, it's a huge oh, how can I put it? It is a really what it was when I got sober, nothing ever fell on Chelsea. I know a lot of like people that get sober and their spouses or their husbands, wives, whatever, have to nag them. You going to your meeting, you doing this, you doing this. And for me, it's just a huge accountability because if I were to go drink again, I lose my job. And so uh There's so much stuff that goes into that program. It starts with 30 days of inpatient rehab. And then after that, you do 90 meetings in 90 days. And then after that, you start seeing doctors. You start seeing a flight doctor, then you go to neuropsychologists, then you go to therapists, then you're doing like testing. They're testing to see like how much damage do you do when you're drinking? Like, are you able to fly a plane again? You got wet brain, essentially, is what they're looking for. And so you're doing all this stuff. And while you're doing this, you also have peer pilots that you are talking to weekly. You have to meet with chief pilot weekly. You have weekly classes that you're doing. I mean, there's literally just stuff going on all the time. And all of it was just an accountability. Looking back on it, Chelsea never had to ask me, "Are you going to go to a meeting today?" Now, there's times to this day where she'll say, "Do you need a little bit of time to yourself?" When she sees me starting to fall back into like old pattern habits or like getting short people, whatever it might be, she'll be like, "Hey, do you need to take a few moments away?" And usually I'm like, "Oh yeah," she's the first to recognize like when my mind starts going, not necessarily like I'm not gonna go drink or anything, right? But just like I'm
Oh
falling
yeah.
back into old patterns. And so for us, it was really an accountability thing. And to this day, I'm 8 years in, and I still, let's see, it was up until about 6 or 8 months ago, I was still doing 14 drug tests a year. So at any point in time, I could get a phone call. "Hey, we want you to go do a breathalyzer or a drug test or whatever it might be." And I was required to do at a minimum of 14. And that finally just backed off, and I'm down to 4 a year now, but they're blood draws, so it's a 30-day look back. And so I know at any point in time that my employer could call me and they tell me to go get a drug test, and so I go get my blood drawn and they test it at a minimum of 4 times a year. And so just knowing that in the back of my mind, like, hey, I worked really hard to get back into the cockpit. I love my job. It's not the end of the world if I lose my job again. The whole heart thing just kind of proved that, like, hey, that's not where my identity is. So if that's what's supposed to happen, like, I'm okay losing it, right? But like, I'm not going to lose it because of decisions I made for the things that I put in my body. So it's really just a big accountability program. And so, no, it's been a big blessing for us because Chelsea just never felt like she had to nag me to do anything. It just was always like, if you don't do it, then you lose your job. And then you got to figure something else out. And so for me, it's been just a big motivation for me. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And then as you get further and further on in your sobriety, things start backing off. I'm not doing weekly classes anymore, 8 months or 8 years in. And so yeah, to this day, again, 8 years in, and I got 30 years left before they'll kick me out. So for the next 30 years, I'll still have the drug tests, and I'm also on what's called a special issuance medical, which is I'm allowed to fly, but I'm on a special issuance saying you're allowed to fly because you're meeting these requirements. And so those are the drug tests, passing the drug tests, and I also have to see a doctor twice a year instead of once a year, like so on and so forth. So there's still little tiny things that I'll have to do for the rest of my career. So it's a program of if you want to exercise your privileges as a pilot, it's sobriety forever. So so
Absolutely.
it's yeah, just an accountability, which has been
Right. And
great.
I think even if you didn't have that accountability, though, I don't think you would have any issue staying sober. I think you've experienced that gift. Man, I don't think you're interested in drinking at all, probably, right?
No, they talk about that. Like early on, you talked about people that just say, I just lost the desire at some point. And
Yeah.
yeah, eventually it just goes away. Well, I don't want to say it just goes away because maybe for some people it doesn't. I think God takes certain things away from us, and I believe I was blessed with that. Like I think God took that desire away from me, and I just don't have it anymore. So I can't even remember the last time that I thought like, ooh, a drink would be nice or something. To me, it's just not there anymore, which is a huge blessing. I know some people that have been in AA meetings and stuff. They're 30 years in, and it, saying, it just isn't there. So I have to be at these meetings because if I'm not, I'm probably gonna go out and drink or whatever. And I've just been blessed to not have that. And one day it was just gone. And I don't know when that came or how it came or whatnot, but one day it left, and yeah, it's just don't have the desire anymore. So
Yeah,
huge
same
blessing
here.
for
I
sure.
don't remember when either. It just all of a sudden I
Something
had no
clicks and
desire. Yeah. And I heard somebody say once that God removes the obsession. We have to do the rest, and grateful for that because yeah, it's you remove that obsession, that just no longer becomes an option or solution. We're still selfish and still
Oh,
get that
absolutely. Yeah.
head talk like you were talking about. We still get that self pity. So it is still a daily maintenance thing, but
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll have a day where I'll get emotional or get upset or lose my mind or something. It doesn't happen in a while. I think I had one episode a couple months ago. I was just a jerk. I was just not a nice
Mm,
person because it was almost intoxicating, that feeling of just being selfish. When we talk
okay.
about being,
Yeah.
for a period, I was like, you know what? Screw this podcast, screw helping people, screw my family, my business, that self-destruction mode. And
Yeah.
it took me a whole day to calm. And then when I had to go to Brittany and make things right, she said, "You haven't been like that in such a long time that we'll just write that off," kind of. But yeah, that's what happens. Is I
Yeah.
didn't drink though. I didn't have any desire to get drunk. But I think if I would have stayed in that, I think eventually I'd have to because you can't live like that. But there was a
No.
period where I just wanted to come into my office and just break stuff because then there's no turning back then, right? Like
Yeah.
this is who I am. I'm just a jerk. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy, but that's what
Yeah.
happens. That's what I considered kind of an emotional relapse or a spiritual relapse when you just turn into yourself and
Yeah.
uh, man, it's just not a good way to live.
We had recently, like, when I say recently, like within the last couple of days, we had some alcohol issues come back up in our family. And I was talking to a member of my family, and they were nervous to talk to me. And they said, I didn't want to talk to you because I was afraid what it would do to your sobriety. And
Yeah,
one of the like beautiful things about it is I told them, I said, your decisions don't affect my sobriety today.
yeah,
So
oh
like
yeah,
I don't have control over anything, you know? And so it was like, you know, they were nervous to talk to me about the alcohol issues going on in their life. And it was like, because they thought that that was going to trigger me to drink. And it's like, that's kind of like the beauty of it when you look back and you're like, yeah, 7, 8 years ago when I was freshly sober or before even, yeah, that probably would have thrown me over the edge, you know? But now it's like people's decisions, people's actions, like they don't get to control my decision to not drink. And that's kind of neat. So,
it's amazing and
uh,
it's a good feeling and
yeah,
it's important for you and it's important for me because with hymns you have that accountability. But that's why I wanted to make it a point where even if you didn't have that accountability, it wouldn't matter
yeah,
because that's just a lot. Nobody else is responsible for your drinking. They could have the best accountability program in the world, and
yeah.
if you wanted to, you'd find a way. I think
Oh yeah,
we'd find a way. When you're in Aruba, they're not going to drug test you,
yeah,
and well, that's it. And even my wife recently mentioned to me about having accountability, and it's like, man, it was me and God.
yeah,
That's the best accountability because if I drank again, I would know it. I couldn't come on this podcast and
yeah,
talk about sobriety and how good I'm doing, and knowing that last weekend I drank.
yeah,
And that's the part of being honest is just being true to yourself.
yeah, absolutely.
I know there could be people that say, "Oh, I've been sober 6 months," and they may have drank in that period, and I might have known it. I know there's somebody that had, and it's not my responsibility to point it out.
Yeah,
I'll let them say what they need to say because eventually that catches up to you. You're just
oh
delaying the
yeah,
inevitable. You can't hide.
yeah,
It's no way to live. You just got to be honest and own it. And like what you and Chelsea did, you put yourselves out there in front of your church, your community, and then Facebook. And by doing so, you reached me, you reached a stranger in Cody, Wyoming. Who knows who you've impacted without knowing it. And by
yeah,
doing that, also, it helps you to be honest with yourself and be of value. Because for a long time, even though you're a pilot and you had a wife and a home and all that stuff, you weren't really being yourself, like who
yeah,
you are today, dude. And that's
yeah,
amazing, buddy.
absolutely.
Dude, you're the best, man.
No,
I freaking love you.
yeah,
Just
no,
a stud.
I'm happy to be able to talk about it. So
No, I'm
it's
glad
been
you
great.
do. And I kind of I forgot how crazy it was for you guys. I forgot about the painting houses thing. And yeah, you guys eventually bought a house in Rapid and sold it. And you have a house now in Utah. And how incredible, bro. And you did it honestly and uh, happily. And that's the best.
Yeah,
We say alcoholism is a rapacious creditor.
Yeah.
Eventually it's going to come for your car, your wife, your kids, your house. It's
Yeah.
just, it won't stop until you've got nothing. And for you guys that did take everything and through sobriety, look at you now, bro. So
Yeah.
proud of you, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. So,
Thank you for doing this with me,
yeah.
man. And
Hey,
look forward
absolutely.
to here talking to Chelsea hopefully next week or something. That'd be great to hear her
Yeah,
side of it.
we'll get her on. So, I was just talking to her earlier and she's excited to do it. So,
That's sweet, dude. I'm
yeah.
excited to talk to her too and get her side. And
So,
appreciate you guys. And thanks again for doing this. Congrats.
hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You bet, buddy.